Mogobe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you for having me.
It's always good to have you.
Now we should call him Malome because
Yeah, Malome. Uncle.
Uncle.
He was in Zimbabwe just the other week. I saw on your social media.
Over the long weekend. Over the weekend, sorry.
How was that? What were you doing in Zimbabwe?
Super. No, what happens is that I'm part of an investment group
called
Tsela Alliance. So every 2 years we go and then get to introspect and to plan the next 2 years, review our investments and get to be with our spouses as well. So we mix business and pleasure. Yeah.
Okay.
We went to hang out in Zimbabwe.
Are you taking notes, Swift?
Well, there's no romance without
finance.
Well, welcome to the show and congratulations. We also saw you on the budget speech review that happened recently.
Yes.
The budget speech, interesting document. We've read it, some of us. Samantha and I have paged through it and read it as well. And it's got a little few nuggets of wisdom.
Yes.
Nuggets that can help you as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's striving to become financially, independent, on how to best plan your business, how to best plan yourself and your development. The budget speech review and the opportunities it presents is the subject of today. And budgets are read to us yearly, and the word budget strikes me as a very boring word. It can almost come across as very boring, very monotonous. And of course, with the start of the financial year, a lot of business people need to really understand how the national budget affects their own personal businesses. I mean, the bread basket, it can also affect the bread basket, which speaks to the family household, and how to take advantage of the opportunities presented, which are stated in the budget. There is also a buzzword that Mogobe has done, a YouTube thing, tenderpreneurship.
Yeah.
Funny enough, we're talking about it off air.
Yeah.
And let's get into it. Mogobe, with regards to the budget speech, what's your overall or your general, view of it that speaks to people in the business community?
Yeah, I have a slightly different take from most experts on this.
Okay.
Generally, it's either whether you have a pessimistic outlook to life or an optimistic outlook. I happen to be an eternal optimist. So when I looked at the budget, I also looked at the overall context. I considered who's delivering the budget. I noticed that Dr. Matsika is a person who's got background, entrepreneurship, in the sense that he's actually operated in the private sector space.
Yes.
So I felt that there's a breath of fresh air, there's a different perspective, and coming as it did with the fresh mandate for a Mac Masisa.
Yes.
So if you look at it in that context, you want to look for things which are new, which are fresh. The big shift for me was moving from a public sector driven economy to a private sector driven economy, and also the whole focus on citizenship empowerment, and a conscious attempt, it seems to me, by saying, let's not just regurgitate numbers, let's review what we've been doing all these years.
Past, yes.
So when the minister said he'll be setting up a committee to review, to review parastatals, what do they call them? They call them enterprises that are sponsored by government. So what's the word for it? Just parastatals in general. So I felt that this is something different. Something different has to come out of it. So I'm very, very optimistic about the budget. Yes, I noticed that there was a deficit. I know that it's a source of concern, but I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're focusing on making a difference in your field of economic endeavor, you can succeed. And the budget sets the framework, because the government's job is not to spoon feed us. No, it's simply to encourage us as the private sector, and to create an environment that is conducive. Yes, an environment that's conducive for enterprise. So I think that budget speaks to that.
Okay. I think another question that people might have for you is, what are your thoughts when it comes to businesses? Do you feel that the businesses are reliant on government for survival?
Well, I think the government has a crucial and indispensable role. They have to really set up an environment. I mean, the government has to set up a business friendly ecosystem for us as businesses to function. So, I mean, if you look at very successful economies like the likes of Singapore, you look at what's happening in Poland now, and then Rwanda, and even one of our SADC members being Tanzania, you see that there's a vast shift in the short space of time that Magufuli has been there. Just because of the introduction of new leadership, you see that there's a much more business-friendly, much more result-driven kind of environment. I mean, in Tanzania, for instance, if a civil servant is lazy, as if a civil servant is not performing, he's out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no two ways about it. And we need to have that mindset that we want performance-based, remuneration, even not just in the private sector, but also in the public sector.
Are you already dropping the nuggets of wisdom? And I think it's always nice to see a different perspective of the budget speech, especially from someone who, like yourself, who's walked through, different budget speeches over the years, and taken advantage of some and well positioned yourself. That begs, you have an amazing podcast about tenderpreneurship. And do business people people position themselves for any tenders in the industry? I mean, I read that. I looked at, the energy. I was particularly attracted to the budget for energy.
Yeah.
That speaks to...
Well, what has happened is that you have two types of entrepreneurs.
Okay.
You have ones like my friend, I think, I don't know if I can mention, Basic, who has nothing to do with the government tendering system because there's a perception that it's corrupt. You have to rub, and then of course there are others who depend on the government for some of their businesses. I, for instance, coming from the real estate space, you want to be there dealing with government when it comes to occupying a substantial piece of property.
Yeah.
So we need to work out some sort of arrangement. So I think that the middle ground is the way to go. I'm saying to entrepreneurs, don't shun and avoid government. Try and learn. If you look at the 10 nuggets I've developed, I'm trying to encourage entrepreneurs to have systems in place, to be ready and to be able to be nimble, to take advantage of opportunities that come from the public sector. You'll be amazed the amount of money that goes back to government every single year as a result of the fact that that money has not been utilized, either because of poor performance, but partly because people have not come forward to take advantage of those tenders, to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think one has to find some kind of middle ground as an entrepreneur where you take advantage of the opportunities that are available from the budget from government without being entirely dependent. What I don't want is the dependency syndrome, where you depend entirely on government.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow. I love how you say you don't want a complete dependency. We'll continue this conversation on the other side of this. 1496 is the SMS line. If you'd like to be a part of this conversation, or you can actually call in live on 3956962.
It's Gabz FM, powered to engage your world. If you've just joined us, you're on the Wealth Fix, the Midday Fix, and a feature called the Wealth Fix with Samantha and Swift. Today we have our very own one. One thing I think, Samantha, a lot of stories need to be told about profiling entrepreneurs, concentrating on how they transition from failure to success, our very own stories. And that's why, you and I have also taken time to create this platform. And in studio we have, what do you want us to call him?
Uncle.
Uncle. Just Uncle.
Maybe I don't want to be called that.
No, what should, Mogobe has done amazing work. This man is very passionate about development in any sphere. The guy's a motivational talker, transformational talker. He's also, invests in fields of personal development and paradigm shifting. One thing that he's always encouraged us to, invest in thyself in order to produce. He is a real estate godfather, let me say.
Okay.
That's a good statement.
Okay.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously humility says he's not done.
No, but we are allowed to praise him.
Yes, we are allowed to praise him. He's gone on, I think, one of the only Botswana who's, let me not say one of the only Botswana, one of the people who's reaching out to teach what?
A teacher.
He's a teacher. He has that nature about him, and that's why we've extended, this invitation for him to be a part of the show. Let's talk about the 10 nuggets. Where did you birth this whole, movement of 10 nuggets?
What has happened is that since the zeros, I took an interest in public speaking.
Okay.
Or in motivational speaking. Part of it, I wanted to improve my skills as an advocate. I was a lawyer. We had to argue and persuade judges to see things from my point of view, to win my clients' cases. That was the initial impetus. So as I went into speaking, and when I became a member of the SASA, as it was called then, which is now called PSASA, Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, I got hooked into the idea of persuading people, making a difference in people's lives. And when I read about Warren Buffett, that he says the biggest and most important skill that an entrepreneur needs is the skill of public speaking.
Yeah.
And then I identified with that, and then I said, look, this is something I could do. And then around 08 I started the Meet the Overcomers program.
Yes.
Which is still running. It's one of the longest running program. I think we're on our 13th year. 13th year.
Wow.
And I have my good friend Raktin Mazani running it on a daily basis. On a weekly basis. So this has developed. So last year, what I've been getting every time I'm invited to speak, I have people saying, can you mentor me? Can you mentor me? And I said, how can I mentor so many people?
Absolutely.
Let me come up with a way. Let me take advantage of technology. So I decided to set up a podcast, and YouTube offered a brilliant platform where I decided, look, let mine be different. Let me break down whatever I'm presenting to 10 points so that it's palatable. I know that we have this problem of short attention spans, and we live in this instant gratification environment.
Yes.
So I said, look, let me take advantage of that. Instead of lamenting the situation, how can I make lemonade out of these lemons?
You did say you're an optimist.
Yeah.
Person,
so it's been running literally from around September last year, and already it's really building up. We have about 35, if I'm not mistaken, videos, and we're building up at the rate of 1 or 2 a week. So it's really growing. Some of our videos really go viral. This one on tenderpreneurship, he had some 89,000 hits at some point when you put it on Facebook. So it gave me an impression that there's hunger and people want to interact. So now I get people in the streets greeting me, people that I don't even know. Over the last 5 months, I don't know whether I've unleashed a monster here or what, but it's very interesting.
No, well done. And we are seeing the results. I think one of your mentees is also Remo Homotsi France, who's doing also quite well, and he does say that he draws a lot of wisdom from following you, and I think that allows a platform for a lot more of us to be a part of it.
Yes.
Don't go away. We're going to continue the conversation. Just to let you know, Mogobe, the phone lines are open 3956962. If you'd like to ask any question, I want him to also share on his past failures and what he did to persevere to where he is now, because a lot of people fall in love with the end product and don't understand that there is what you call the law of process. We'll also ask him what books he's reading. He's brought 2 books in studio. I'd love to snatch one.
No, you need to go and buy one.
You need to
go and buy one, exactly.
But don't go away. We're going to be discussing, and in line with the budget speech, what he thinks 2020 and what we can do as entrepreneurs. Don't go away.
It's your world.
It's Gabz FM, power to engage your world. Let's get into the 10 nuggets of wisdom. One thing that we are all interested in, and we're talking specifically about tenderpreneurship. Mogobe, it says obtain a license relevant to your industry. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, that obviously means preparation, so that when an opportunity comes, you are ready. If you start applying for a license when the tender is already advertised in the government gazette, that might be a bit late. So what I'm urging entrepreneurs to do is to be ready with a license in the field of economic endeavor that they are involved in, because licenses are almost invariably a crucial requirement without which you can't get some of these tenders.
Okay. Nugget number 2, Remogobe, register with the PPADB. and ascertain that you obtain the right codes for your industry.
Yeah, that one is very, very important because, there's a legislative environment within which we're operating. The PPADB Act sets everything out. And nowadays, the beautiful thing is you can even register online. So what I'm urging the listener to do, if they're interested in working with government, is to ensure that they register now. It's a simple exercise. You can just go across the railway line from the Railway Park Mall and go there and you ask any questions you want. Alternatively, you go online and you just enter the details that are required and you register. It's a fairly painless and straightforward process. It's also part of what I've been saying: preparation. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, if you have 8 hours to cut a tree, spend 7 hours sharpening the axe. So this is part of sharpening the axe. It's very, very important.
Okay. And then the third nugget that you have put down is register with the government printer and subscribe for the Botswana Government Gazette.
That one is also vital. What that enables you is to, as it were, put your ear to the ground, so that you are sensitive and aware of what might be coming, so that things come at you continually. In the Government Gazette, for those who don't know, all the government's procurement plans are set out. It will be set out there in the form of an advert stating what the requirements for the ministry are, the department is, and sometimes even, I think most times even for local authorities. So you sensitize in Clean Cities and Towns, which is our sanitation company. We actually go and purchase on a weekly basis this government gazette. We ensure that we don't miss anything. And then you can pick and choose the ones that you find most lucrative, and for the ones for which you feel you are ready.
Absolutely, and I think I like this because it's a step-by-step process which is really broken down in terms of, ensuring that you get the highest opportunity or highest there, for lack of a better word, a strike. Talk to us about the fourth one is purchase the tender document. Walk us through that.
Well, if you are a member of youth, and youth is defined as 35 or younger, you can even pay half price. And on average, these tender documents are anything between 350 to 500. So as a member of the youth, if the company is majority owned by youth, you can purchase the tender for 50% of the amount. The government obviously has to cover the costs of preparing these tenders in terms of stationery costs, etc. So there's a nominal amount which you have to pay. So you go up there, once you've identified what you want, you get the tender.
Okay.
Nugget number 5, meticulously study the tender documents.
This one we cannot emphasize more strongly. Go through line by line, page by page, and don't be embarrassed to seek help or to elicit the expertise of somebody who's been at it before, so that they can help you understand, because really most tenders are two-envelope type of tenders. I happen to sit in a body called ICRC, which stands for Independent Complaints Review Committee, which is an appeal body of the PPADB. And if you look at the sort of complaints, because we are the last body, I'm sort of, as it were, a judge or a member of a tribunal who sits on these, and I've been adjudicating over these disputes, over these complaints over tenders since 2013, when I was appointed by Minister Matambo. And what I found is that a lot of these tenders come out of misinformation, lack of thoroughness, lack of focus on what the ITT, the tender document, requires. So I'm urging the listeners out there, as well as the people who are watching me on YouTube, to be very, very thorough.
Be very thorough. That one I'll take home with me as well. You say be aware of site visits where applicable. Please expand on that. That's nugget number 6.
Let's take a tender in the space where we're operating in, where it has to do with sanitation. It may be a case of providing skip containers, or maybe using a truck to collect bins or whatever it is. You may need to, most of these tenders will require you to come on certain dates for site inspection, so that you can assess and analyze how heavy the job is. And if you haven't taken advantage of this opportunity, you may, during your tendering, be unable to take account of the expenses involved, the costs involved in terms of movement, in terms of petrol, if you haven't taken that opportunity. So I'm reminding the would-be tenderpreneurs to make sure that they do not miss the step. They get involved from stage one.
Okay. Nugget number 7, check and be alert to the validity closing date.
Wow, this one may seem obvious, but most of these tenders will say we close at 10 a.m. on such and such a date. If you are not alive to these dates, you may come 5 minutes. I've actually bounced where I come a minute or two late. On top of that, if you're not sensitive to these dates, what I also advise in tandem with that is that make sure that you are ready at least 24, 48 hours before. So that you spend the last 48 hours just checking to ensure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. Luckily these days it's not as severe as it used to be when we started tendering. Those days, if you are missing a certificate of incorporation or if you have forgotten to sign an initial on a particular page, you are disqualified. I mean disqualified out of it. But nowadays, with the help of organizations such as my own, ICRC, where we have made suggestions when we're given judgments as to how draconian some of these policies are, the government has eased that requirements. You can be called back when you've forgotten to submit your OMANG, your certificate of incorporation. So it's not as tight as it is, but still, when it comes to other issues in terms of ensuring that you have the forms properly completed, you indicate where you're sourcing whatever it is you're supplying, where you've shown a certain amount of thoroughness, there things haven't changed. So I would say that just be as thorough as I would have been 2 years ago or more.
Okay. Nugget number 8, it speaks to verify certification and commission of documents, which you did touch on just now.
It's still a requirement.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to ensure that we're not dealing with a fly-by-night or somebody who's perhaps trying to defraud government. So it's important that documents that have been submitted have been properly certified, have been properly authenticated by, for instance, in the case of OMANG, they'll want your OMANG to have been authenticated by the National Issuing Authority, for instance. So you need to be alert to that, and it may seem like simple, but all these things you need to be quite focused and thorough on.
Okay, nugget number 9, attend to firm binding.
Yes. Also, this one seems silly, but there used to be a belief that one of two things happened. That there might be corrupt officials within the procurement system. You know, somebody may be sitting in the ministerial tender committee who sees your tender and then removes the paper. There used to be that belief. In addition to that, unavoidably, when you are dealing with tons and tons of paper, things fall off, things come out of place if they are not properly bound. So we have come up and see this book, the way it's been bound. You want a system like this where pages cannot just be ripped off easily, when things are, so there is that system. If you go to BMS or any other reputable organization, they will bind things professionally. It's almost like it's a heating system to make sure that you can't take off papers, and your tender is 100%.
So that it looks more like a book than anything.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't go with this, what do you call it, the spiral system.
Yes.
Oh, that one is deadly.
Okay.
Things fall off,
Cost you the whole tender.
Yes.
Nugget number 10 is one of my interests. It says price correctly, and this is where a lot of maybe you can touch on it even from the.
It actually came up in the budget speech.
Yeah.
We talked about the pricing,
and maybe you can highlight it from the point of view of prosperity mindset versus scarcity mindset, because a lot of tenderpreneurs view tenders as get-rich-quick schemes.
Yeah, that one is a tragedy. I mean, people want to nail it and to hit it big overnight. So there is that sort of thinking where people are not prepared for those small incremental steps that really make for solid success. So what I'm saying is that do make absolutely sure that your pricing, when you set your price, is reasonable. There are people who sit in the ministerial tender committee or in the adjudication committee of the tender. Some of them are from industry, some of them are from within, who can easily verify these prices.
Yes.
And after all, you'll have indicated who your suppliers are. If you are out to make 100%, 150% profit, you're likely to lose out, because the government still focuses on the lowest price kind of tender system. So what is my point? My point is, this is not about a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not about going to buy a Range Rover and that sort of thing. It's about you creating sustainable wealth in the long term, and also being interested in your own country. You don't want the country's resources, you don't want them to be wasted needlessly just because you want to enrich yourself. And as the new government comes in and to clean up on corruption, what I'm urging tenderpreneurs to do is to be mindful of that and to be conscious of that when they're tendering.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. Samantha, you had a few questions. Last question?
A bonus nugget that you have here. This is very interesting because it's something we actually talked about a little bit off air. Do not depend entirely on government tenders.
Yeah, you be a tenderpreneur, but don't be a tender dependent. What I meant is that even in the history of our country, if you look at what happened to big construction companies, even in the 90s, the ones that were entirely dependent on government, I won't mention any names, but they had to close shop because they were not adaptable. They do not adapt. I mean, there's a reason why we do not have dinosaurs today. They could not adapt, but we still have crocodiles. We still have other ancient animals.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying to you is that those that adapt will win. There are one or two construction companies, some of which are advised in the late 90s, which reposition themselves. Instead of you depending on government, being a construction company, be a constructor, go into the private sector, have that flexibility. So government, even in the case of people such as ourselves in the real estate industry, you find that government constitutes a minority of our tenants, because we realize that we need to hedge our bets and we need to safeguard our long-term interests. If government decides for any reason that they no longer want to use us, then what? Besides, there is a conscious effort on the part of government for if maybe you've had the same tender for 5 years, they want to try somebody new. So you, as a matter of course, you know that after 3 or 5 years, that tender comes to an end. The likelihood of you being invited again, all things being equal, are very limited. So I'm saying, don't be dependent on tenders, but don't be like my friend Base, I think I can mention it, and be anti-tenders altogether.
So find a middle ground.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
There's actually an SMS that came in here. It says, "Hey," and I can hear from just the tone of this that this person is really feeling a bit low on this. And I'm in real estate, but I can't get funding from banks. I do everything from my own pocket, but real estate is capital intensive. So far so good. I have 6 plots, all of them developed into multi-family residential. One of them is opposite your office in Rabani. Can I make it big without funding from the bank, sir? So that's a question for you.
Yeah, I think you cannot answer that question in a useful manner without really knowing the nitty-gritties. But by and large, I want to say to the person commenting, congratulations. It looks like this is somebody who's getting their hands dirty, who's really involved. Because to me, I believe in trial and error, especially error. The error part should be underscored, because you can only learn through trial and especially error. So I believe in the idea of, fire ready aim. In other words, get going before and get something done. Then only when you aim later after you fired will you know for sure where the target is. Don't wait for the target to be perfectly aligned before you move. That's why I have one of the famous phrases: never allow perfection to be the enemy of progress. Never allow perfection to be the enemy of progress. So the lady, I assume it's a lady, I don't know where I got that assumption, but whoever it is who's asked this question, congratulations. I'm unable to answer your question fully. I believe in leverage. When I say leverage, I mean borrowing money from banks. I also believe in minimizing your risk by ensuring that you come up with a substantial deposit, but there's no one shoe fits all. When it comes to real estate, there are different tactics and different approaches. In our case, when we started, we didn't even borrow any money. We only did that as we were expanding. So, you know, I'm not going to say more, except to say, keep at it, keep going for it, and congratulations.
Absolutely. It's Gabz FM, power to engage your world. What a quality interview with offering you practical ways to move forward. Mogobe, just before you leave, can you drop us some knowledge in terms of sharing from your story and how you managed to transition from your failures into this optimistic mindset? I mean, let's face it, what you've done has been incredible in the real estate market, but it's no easy task. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that. There's a lot of sleepless nights, and sometimes we just get in love with seeing you now and think, no, I just want to be like
the
him.
end product.
The end product. Ramona goes in Bali, would love to go, you know, but we don't understand what it took to get you to where you are.
There's so many ways I can answer this question. Let me try this one. The good book says that a righteous man falls 7 times and rises, and a wicked man falls to his destruction. So when I'm speaking to church audiences, I say to them, because they are believers already, I say to them, don't be wicked by staying on the floor when there's an uppercut. The Bible says a wicked man falls once and gets finished. So it appears the wickedness does not come from falling. The wickedness comes from staying down. So my biggest argument is that the obstacle that you are facing that causes you to stop trying and to stop overcoming those challenges is the same obstacle that somebody else faced, overcame, and thrived on. So that's why I like the idea of being a stoic about this. There's a book by a guy called Ryan Holiday saying the obstacle is the way. But in terms of how generally I overcame my challenges, I became more optimistic. It's a conscious effort, my friend. Look at this. This is a book I'm reading just now, Stagnation Must Fall by Superior Moyo. Here's another book written by a local young man. I don't know whether he wants me to promote his books, but let me just do that for what it's worth. Transforming on Purpose.
Wow.
And what I like about these books is that sometimes they make reference to people who've succeeded before them.
Yes.
They give credit to people like Lerumo. In this book, he also refers to me, as does Mr. Makwana, the other book I've just read.
Yes.
So there seems to be a culture of entrepreneurship that has exploded, especially in the last 5 years.
Yes.
Where Botswana are now saying personal development, and I think personal development simply says feed your mind the same way as you're feeding your mouth.
Hello.
Feed your mind. So that's how I do it. I mean, I consciously read. I consider that, look, I'm having 3 meals a day. Why can't I at least have 2 hours a day just feeding my mind? After all, one of the richest men in the world takes reading vacations. Bill Gates. He goes away just to read. Takes 50 books to read. And the third richest man says he spends 6 or 7 hours a day reading. Even assuming that they're exaggerating a little, why can't you spend at least 30 minutes or 1 hour a day reading instead of watching Netflix, instead of maybe binge watching on TV or Facebook? I say that the biggest problem we have now is looking for the bottom of Facebook. You find somebody trying to identify the bottom of Facebook.
Scrolling down.
You'll never find the bottom of Facebook.
Yeah, I like that. Oh,
So,
wow.
I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. I would like you to also touch on some last words as you know who you are. What do you perceive? What's the Botswana of your dreams as you close the show for us?
Well, I went to UAE, United Arab Emirates, and I went to 2 of the Emirates. One is Dubai, the other is Abu Dhabi. And I see how the place has exploded. And I looked at history and I see the level of development they were in 1966. And I look at history and see how Singapore was in 1966. And I saw that these guys have the same DNA, they're human, they bleed blood like all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
What is the difference that made a difference? And then I read their history and I saw that in the case of UAE, they had leaders who were entrepreneurial in their thinking. if you read about the first ruler of Dubai and even the current ruler, they physically go to projects. They are project managers themselves. They actually monitor what's going on. They do pretty much what Magufuli is doing. Magufuli goes out and gets involved. So let it not just be from top down, instructions down.
Yeah.
Let it also be bottom up in terms of the leaders getting to the level where they get involved directly in projects. So I think you need that kind of dynamic leadership. And I got the sense from some of the noises that were coming from Dr. Matseka, from Dr. Masisi, that they want to get their hands dirty. So all I'm doing, I want to ask them is to get themselves more involved. Let them get more involved. If there's a project as big as the the carriageway,
Yes.
let them be seen there. Let them get involved. Let them know something about the project. Let them get involved. And there's no reason why in the long run that won't cascade into the marketplace and the way of thinking. Because what we need is inspirational leadership.
Yes.
And they have what it takes. What they need to do is just to execute on it now that they've been given the mandate. So I'm very, very optimistic about the country. I see us achieving feats as big as have been achieved in the likes of Dubai. Because if you look at the population, people say population this. Our population is the same as theirs.
Yeah.
They've just had to adjust and develop policies where they welcome foreign investment without sacrificing citizen empowerment.
Absolutely.
You can have both working in tandem, side by side. So I'm very, very optimistic. I'm very excited for this country.
Thank you, sir. And this is not the first, nor is it his last visit. We're going to continue with him with the World Fix alongside Mogobe France.
We need to find out where do they find you? How do they get a hold of your nuggets? The 10 nuggets that you're always dropping, how do we do that?
That's a very good question, and I thought you'd never ask. Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom is on YouTube. You just go to YouTube and chances are when you type Mogobe and they will all come out. And what I'm asking you, dear listeners, to subscribe. And the reason you need to subscribe is that so I can reach more people, so that I can create more content, so that you can benefit more. Because one of the things we do in the Nuggets, apart from me talking like this, is that we invite industry experts in various areas and we interview them and then we place it on YouTube. That's number one. Number two, I'm now all of a sudden active in social media. I used to actually shun and avoid it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last 5 months, I'm all over. Maybe I'm even overdoing it, but I'll try and rein in myself. So there's Mogobe, which is short for my first name, Mompoloki. I'm on Facebook. There's also Instagram, Mompoloki.
You're on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm following him on all platforms.
Yeah, and then there's also a little bit of what? There's a blog, Mogobe, and there's Mogobe, the other one. So, and there's also Mogobe Inc., where we post some of these videos. And this particular interview, assuming that we got it right, everything is right, sir, will be uploaded within the next 48 hours.
Yes.
Wow.
On Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom.
Well, I couldn't say it more. You know what? I think Mogobe has validated what Samantha and I, what the Midday Fix believe in. We believe in reading and reading and reading and reading some more. And thank you so much. This is not the first, this is not the last. We'll have you more. And, toast to a better Botswana, a better future.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The privilege was mine. Thank you very much.